taking this up a notch analytically, one thing one can do with, again, a large and reasonably balanced global data set going over a long period of time, and for this purpose we extended it up as far as the early 2000s, is to ask, is there a common pattern in the country-by-country data? And I did that by running a two-way fixed effects panel regression, which had country effects, time effects, and controls mainly for GDP. So you don't have a lot of variables that you can use to, with the same degree of coverage as you have with these inequality numbers, and an ironic limitation of this particular year. You can extract from the data an underlying, let's say, trend, which is the common element of within-country inequality movement across the globe. And this is the pattern that emerges, and it's very interesting that it has a very distinct set of three turning points. The first one being around 1971-73. The second one being around 1980-81, and the third one being in 2000. And so what emerges from the data are the significance of these dates. And one then has to ask, do these dates correspond in any sort of conspicuous way to important events that are governing the governance of that reflect changes in the governance of the world economy? And the answer to that is that they're very conspicuous events with global reach at these particular moments, more conspicuous than events at other moments. And they are the end of the stabilizing Bretton Woods system, which had run from 1945 until 1971. And then that was followed by a debt-driven development boom that lasted up until 1980. Along with the commodities price increases that we saw the specific influence of in the early maps. And in the early 1980s, it was all reversed with a massive global debt crisis as real interest rates went up into double-digit range, nominal interest rates up to 20% in the United States. And the effect of the financial stresses of that particular sequence of events continued for 20 years. And you can see them first in Latin America, later in Central Europe, and finally in Asia. You can think of this as being repercussions that are felt in different places according to the capacity of the institutions to resist them. But there's practically nothing out there which is strong enough to resist them all. And then in 2000, you reach a peak. I put down 9/11 as an event. I think 9/11 was an important event in changing the policy of the United States toward interest rates. It helped precipitate the drop of U.S. deposit rates towards zero. But it was also the case that this, and perhaps more significantly, this was the peak of the NAFTA movement. And once that was over, the efforts we entered a new era in which the efforts of policymakers to try and keep things going by one way or another became kind of a predominant and almost inescapable force, which carried on until the whole system broke down in 2007, 2008. An interesting thing about this, I call this concept 4 inequality, because Branko Milanovic, who's great authority in these matters, has named the concepts 1 through 3. And if you look at Branko's concept 1, which is simply calculated from the Penrose tables, using nothing but the average income for each country. The lower curve is without Africa, and the upper one is the whole world. You can see that the pattern of his series, which is a data, from a data point of view, unconnected to mine, is essentially exactly the same. Period of stability, period of decline, turnaround in 1980, long period of increasing inequality afterwards. So what that says is that inequality appears to be a kind of common, uniform force which operates equally if you measure it between countries and within them. Once again, not a great surprise. A poor country is just a collection of poor people. Right? A rich country has rich people in it. The rich people become richer. Within country measures, they become larger, and between country measures, they become larger. It's also the case, an associate of mine, now at Bard College, named Olivier Giovannoni, calculated this, that if you take the profit share just in the OECD countries where one has reliable functional distribution of income measures, again, you see a pattern which is essentially the same. It's kind of turning at the same dates in the early 1980s, and then rises dramatically for another 20 years. So we are seeing, in some sense, a convergence of measures once you get a sufficiently rich source of data. There's a lot more information in inequality measures, I think, than many people previously suspect. George Soros has called the turning point in 1980 the super bubble. The coin shows up in the three of the series here. Super bubble, which is also a super population from the standpoint of the poor populations.